All right, let's get to the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. And joining us right now is Keith Law, senior writer, MLB, for The Athletic. Keith, thanks for joining us here. We've got Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports on this Thursday. We appreciate your time. We got to start off with the obvious. Your thoughts on the messy situation between the A's, Oakland, and Vegas?
It's not entirely my beat, so I can't say I know a ton of the details here. I will say I've been on record for 25 years now saying that all the economic research shows that paying taxpayer money to build sports stadia for privately owned sports teams is a terrible, terrible idea for the economy. And it certainly seems like people in Vegas are catching on to that. There's at least a lot of political opposition. There's a lot of taxpayer opposition there. I'll believe the A's are moving to Vegas when I actually see them take the field in a new stadium there.
And part of the whole thing, and seemingly one of John Fisher's negotiating tactics, is to put a terrible product on the field so people don't support it, and he can justify moving the A's. Can you put into some perspective just how bad that product on the field has been this year?
I haven't watched a ton of major league games. My beat is primarily prospects.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty bad, though. They're certainly on a historic pace. We'll see if that actually holds up. Most teams that have been on a pace like that end up just sort of lucking into a slightly better record than that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got to the end of July and we were talking, how bad is this A's team historically? Do they have a chance to challenge maybe the all-time loss record?
Keith Law is with us here on Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Keith, the Giants, a game above 500. They're 5.5 games back in the West, 1 game back in the wild card. And, at least some of this, or a lot of this, has to do with some of that young talent. Just your assessment of some of that development from the Giants that have put them in this spot.
Well, we haven't seen a lot of from products of the farm system yet. I think most of their better prospects are still farm. We haven't seen Kyle Harrison. We haven't seen Luis Matos, who's kind of the big breakout prospect, one of the big breakout prospects in all of minor league baseball this year. He's in AAA. I expect we'll see him at some point this season. It does look like Marco Luciano is healthy and is going to be able to help the major league club maybe by the very end of this year. Most of what they've gotten from the terms of, I'd say, surprise production this year has been guys like Tyro Estrada, Wade, producing well above what they've done previously in their careers. And I do think that comes back a lot to the work that Gabe Kapler and the major league staff are doing there, where they have shown over the course of 3 years now that they can get a lot more out of players like that, even if it's just making modest adjustments to guys' swings or working with them a little bit to improve their approach. Guys, hitters especially, do get better when they play for Kapler and his coaching staff.
Yeah, I've heard and read a lot about Matos, their top prospect. Can you give me a comp, somebody at the major league level right now who you think he compares to?
I don't really do player comps. I've always kind of felt like they're potentially a little bit misleading. I just like to evaluate players kind of on their own merits. What has really stood out from him this year more than anything else, though, is just how much better his approach at the plate has been. I saw him last year. I saw him in the fall league, and I just went back to make sure I'm quoting myself. I said he looked like a shell of his old self, which is a weird thing to say about a 20-year-old, but something wasn't right. I don't know if he was still dealing with the quad injury or what. He did not look like the same guy. He's always put the ball in play a ton, but he's making much better decisions at the plate. He can really play center field. Now that the quad injury is healed, he can really run. There's a lot of positives here. There's a lot of really good things to say about him. And I think Giants fans should be very excited now that it looks like he's back on track. And again, I think he's going to help the club at some point this year. Whether they need him or not is a separate story, but he'll be ready to help.
Keith Law from The Athletic is with us here. He's on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Keith, of course, one of the bigger storylines in the last week or so is Elly De La Cruz getting the call up. He had a bomb yesterday. Just your thoughts on his ceiling, your evaluation of that player, and how good can this guy be?
So I had him. He was the best prospect in baseball at the time of his call-up. A couple guys that graduated, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson, were ahead of him coming into the year. And I would say based on what they were doing in the minors, he'd really passed. He had passed Jackson Churio of the Brewers, who was the one other guy ahead of him. Ellie it's all superlatives, right? It's off the charts power. It is incredible running speed. He's got great bat speed. He's got one of the best throwing arms anywhere in professional baseball, maybe second or third strongest throwing arm that anybody's got. And what he really showed this year in the minors was he could get more selective at the plate. The big issue he had, I saw him in A-ball, I guess this is 2+ years ago, and I said, hey, this is great. We've seen a lot of guys like this who are super tooled out. They have power, they can run, maybe they can throw, but they swing at everything. And Ellie has gotten better in that regard in each of the last couple of seasons. And that's why I think he's able to, why he earned that call up and why I think he'll actually help that Reds club the rest of the year. Might be inconsistent, but there's going to be a lot of highlights.
We're seeing a few rules changes at the major league level this year, and I'm a fan of most of them, if not all of them at this point, Keith, but they're toying with more at the AAA level, including the electronic strike zone, a robot ump, however you want to term it. What's been the reaction to that among the minor league world?
The problem we're having with it is walks are way up in AAA. The last time I looked, I should really update my data here, but they were up 15% in the International League and 20% in the Pacific Coast League. That's entirely due to the automated strike zone. What we're discovering is that the real strike zone is actually a lot smaller than the strike zone that gets called. And so, on the one hand, you say, I want the real strike zone to be called. Call it like it is in the rule book. Yeah, that's fine until you have 18 walks in a game and everybody's trying to pull their own eyes out with a plastic fork because nobody wants to see that. I think even hitters would tell you in general that's not the kind of baseball they want to be playing. And so that's the adjustment they're going to have to make. And I do think that's going to be a bit of a struggle for Major League Baseball to try to figure out what's the best way to do this. Do they recalibrate the strike zone so that pitchers have a little bit more of an even chance? You want to find that perfect balance between hitters and pitchers. And I worry that the way they're calling it in AAA right now, that might go a little too far in the hitter's direction.
Keith, we started with the A's. Let's end on the A's, and let's look at that farm system. I know that earlier this year you had them ranked 27th, which is pretty amazing considering some of the big trades that they've made in recent history. What's gone wrong there with their evaluation of prospects and not getting enough for some of the guys that they dealt?
Yeah, all of the above. I think you've got it all, right? They have not drafted particularly well. They have not done well in trades. They have particularly seemed to target in trades. They've gone after guys who used to be prospects. Maybe they're a year off of their peak value. And I think a lot of the times they think they're getting, you're getting a guy a little cheaper, or you're getting a guy at a discount. Not enough of those guys have worked out for Oakland. And in the draft, I like their guys. I don't, this is not personal. I've gotten to know a lot of their scouts over the years, but they've had some pretty big first round misses. I'm not even talking about Kyler Murray. I'm talking about the guys who signed and got into the system and who just weren't good enough to be picked where they were picked. That's the thing that they really have to address. And they're just, right now, unfortunately, their last couple of drafts are not contributing enough to the system to pull them out of that bottom tier.
So I lied. I got one more question for you.
Yeah,
we talked about the Giants, and you brought up some of those names. How do you feel their system is? What kind of shape do you think the San Francisco Giants are in right now down on the farm?
I thought, I don't remember where I ranked them exactly coming into the season, but I was definitely down on them and pointed out, they just had a bad year down on the farm. A lot of guys got hurt. A lot of guys underperformed. That would include Patrick Bailey, who's been better in the minors and at least been a little bit better in the majors so far. What I think has happened is almost everyone that struggled last year, they're all getting healthy, and now they're all playing a lot better. So I think the arrow is very strongly pointing up for them at this point.
Great stuff, Keith. Thank you. We always appreciate the time, my man. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
There goes Keith Law, MLB senior writer for The Athletic. He was on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. It truly is amazing, Ramie, in all the wrong ways, to look at, the opportunity, because we get wrapped up into this A's Vegas talk, as we should be. But we talk about the on-field product at the big league level, and we talk about the Vegas move. We can't overlook the terrible job that this front office has likely done, because you always kind of leave some wiggle room because prospects develop at different phases, different stages, and different times and ages. But when you look at what the A's have received from some of the trades they've made in recent years, man, the opportunity was there to field a young, competitive, fun, athletic baseball team, and it looks like they just completely missed the mark.